Good morning. When looking at a clock, we often think that it does the whole day, it tells the whole day. But if you look at this clock, it stops at 12. 12 can mean noon, like around lunchtime, or 12 can mean midnight. So the way you read an analog clock is once you get to this 12, it's the next thing. So if I was at 11:30, before I hit that 12, that would be the first time around. The first time around would be AM. So at 11:30, it is AM, which means it's the first time around the clock, which means it is probably usually earlier in the day. So I drew a sun. Once it gets to past 12 o'clock, it is PM, because it means it's the second time around the clock. So if I was at 1:30, it would be PM. It would be my second time around the clock, which means it is later in the day. I always consider it after lunch. So the first time around the clock would be AM, which would be morning earlier. PM would usually be after lunch. Later in the night, usually the second time around versus the first time around. The way I remember it is A comes before P in the alphabet. So let's say I had breakfast at this time. I'm having breakfast at this time. Do you think it will be AM or PM? It should be AM because it's earlier. It's probably the first time it is gone around the clock. It's not after lunch yet. It's not to that 12 yet. So I'm going to say it is AM. If I'm reading my clock, I know it is 7:05:10. It is 7:10 a.m. when I have my breakfast. What if someone said I had my dinner at this time? My dinner at this time. Dinner, would that be AM or PM? That would be PM because this is my second time around the clock. How I would go through my day if I were showing you the clock is I would say, right now it's midnight. This is the first time around the clock. You're still sleeping. You're sleeping, you're sleeping, you're sleeping. Oh, you might have woken up. You woke up, you went to school. Oh, you ate lunch. Now it's the second time around the clock. Now it's PM. For PM, you kept going to school. You got home from school. You walked your dogs. You did your homework. You ate dinner. You went to bed. You slept and slept and slept and oh, it's AM again. That's how I would explain it. So PM is dinner. And we are at what time for dinner? This time, which would be 6, 5, 10, 15, 20, 6:20 p.m. When I go to school, would that be AM or PM? That would be AM. I'm going to school at what hour? It's not quite to the 8 yet, so it is 7, 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40, 45. 7:45, I go to school, AM. I come back from school at 3:15. Would that be AM or PM? It would be PM because it is after lunch. That's how my brain works. Is after lunch, it is time for p.m. When I do my homework, it is this time. What time is this? 4:05. Notice how I do not just write 5. That would be 4:05, and that would not make sense. You say 4:05 is the time. 4:05 p.m. I'm going to walk my dog on a Saturday at this time. Okay. This could be tricky. If I'm walking my dog on a Saturday, would this be AM or PM? If it were PM, that means it would be nighttime, and it would almost be 10 o'clock. Oh, almost 12 o'clock actually. If it were almost at 12 o'clock, would that be a good time to walk your dog at night? No siree. So I'm going to say it's AM. I'm going to say it's right before I have lunch. I'm going to walk my dog at 11. I'm going to start at 30, 35, 40, 45, 50, 11:50 a.m. So when you're looking at this in my head, I think after it passes that 12, it's lunchtime, so it becomes the second time, p.m. after lunch. That's how my brain thinks, but it is the second time around the clock.